Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Upper Canada Village in our reenactment of a battle from the War of 1812. My name is John Grodzinski. I'm from the Royal Military College of Canada, and I'm here to call the play-by-play action at tonight's engagement. On the left of the field, we have the Crown forces consisting of the British regular troops, Canadians supporting them. On the right, we have the American forces, both sides supported by artillery. You'll note that the soldiers on both sides are not uniform in dress. The one thing about armies in this period, nobody wore the same color on each side. So although there were red coats on the field, you'll see green, you'll see natives in various forms of dress, you'll see militia in various dress. Similarly, on the American side, you'll see regulars wearing blue, gray, and forces from other states or other units wearing other colors as well. So you'll notice as the weapons fire, they generate a lot of smoke. The sound is much more impressive in this closed area. And so the general idea was if somebody came out of the smoke and he wasn't wearing your color, you would shoot him. But again, you might shoot one of your own troops because he's in a different color. You'll see that the ground is broken. This causes a big problem for the troops. They have split rail fences. There's obstacles. It limits fire. It limits supporting fire and so forth. So the action is very close and hot right now. We have the American forces lined up, laying down heavy fire against the Crown forces. Look at the officers staying up on their feet, walking up and down the line, giving instructions and orders to their men. Similarly, on the British forces as well, the officers doing the same thing. And note that the officers do not carry a weapon other than a sword. That is their weapon in battle. You'll see that a portion of the redcoats are behind a split rail fence, which offers some protection for them and an opportunity to fire. On the right, in the gray, are the Voltigeurs Canadiens, a provincial unit from the province of Lower Canada, which was raised at the opening of the War of 1812 for the duration of the war, and perhaps one of the finest units raised in the Canadas. Alongside them, in the green, are the Glengarry Light Infantry Fencibles, similarly raised in that period, but on the British Army list, officered generally by British officers and recruited from across British North America. And we have the Redcoats as well, units from Great Britain, consisting of English, Scots, and Irish, and a host of other national groups within the rank and file. You can see the units laying down their fire. Volley fire is what's used here. The idea is to get the maximum effect firing at your opponent, concentration of fire, in order to create the greatest number of casualties. There's not a lot of room to move here, so what we have are two forces just shooting against each other, and it's the discipline, the training of the soldiers that ensures that they endure the fire and they continue laying down fire on their opponent. The officers and NCOs ensure that they go through the proper loading drill and that the tactics that they use are the correct ones. You can see the pall of smoke coming over the battlefield now after the repeated fire. And now coming forward onto the battlefield are the Canadian Fencibles with their colors deploying in line. I believe they recruited a few people from here tonight that are in the ranks with them, so good luck, gentlemen. Americans as well are moving their forces forward in order to bring down greater fire to bear. This constricted terrain makes it difficult to control the battle. Trying to maneuver around your opponent is very hard, and if you move into the wood line, you could possibly get lost or ambushed by your opponent. So it's a very difficult fight that's going on here. From time to time, you can see that casualties do occur. With this intensity of fire, you can't avoid that. There are now additional British forces moving onto the field. They will be coming in and showing what you see on the battlefield now. Notice the discipline that they march with. Regular troops, whether the United States or British, were trained to maneuver under fire usually with skirmishes to their front who ensure that they have the freedom of maneuver, and then the battalion or companies, depending on the size that's available, maneuver onto the field and then add their fire to that of the forces already there. The music that's with them is partly to help morale, to boost their courage, but also is used to send orders and instructions that the soldiers react to based upon what element is played. We're also at a period of day where the sun's going down, and we'll see the effects of fire become more spectacular. It's impossible to retain night vision in this period because there's two sparks in the musket fires. The musket fires a lead ball about the size of a marble and something down to an effective range of about 100 yards down the battlefield. And as it gets darker, the sparks will affect the soldier's vision, and it'll also make a more spectacular show as well. Night actions were a rarity in this period, mainly because you couldn't control the battle. So during the War of 1812, there are only two major actions that occur at night. One is Stony Creek on the 6th of June, 1813, just at the head of Lake Ontario. And the other was in the Niagara Peninsula on the 25th of July, 1814, the largest battle fought in the Northern Theatre in the War of 1812, the Battle of Lundy's Lane. We can see that the Americans are moving forward, trying to outflank a portion of the British forces. The British are arraying more troops on the field. We're having quite a concentration of soldiers in this battle now, so we'll have to see what happens here, ladies and gentlemen. Notice the volley fire as the units try to lay down fire at once, sending a massive lead downrange against their opponents. There's also Native allies on the field, natives from this region and other parts of Upper and Lower Canada, supporting their British allies in this action here. A very important element supporting the British, not only those natives from the northwest of the United States who have allied themselves with Britain, but natives living in the Canadas played a very important role as well. You'll see the colors flying high on several of the units. That allowed the unit to dress off. That provided the center position from which the companies dressed themselves off the element of the unit. It provided a rallying point should the unit be broken as well. And look at that volley. Look at all that smoke that we have now, making it difficult to see across the battlefield. Now, we have no idea who's going to win this engagement, ladies and gentlemen, so it's up to you to watch and try to figure out as we go along. As the smoke thickens, it becomes virtually impossible to do any sort of aiming with these weapons, although the British weapons didn't have sights. So they just leveled the weapons in the direction of the opponent. You look at the far end of the field now, we have some Glengarries, I believe, who have gone to the other side of the fence. Some dismounted dragoons as well, that's light cavalry, and they're trying to outflank the Americans by going around the water. It could turn very interesting in a few moments, ladies and gentlemen. These battles that you're witnessing today and tomorrow in the village and Crysler's farm between the forces of Great Britain supported by the Canadians against the forces of the United States. The largest battles in this war had about 5,000 soldiers on each side, and those were a rarity. In Europe, you would have engagements where each side could have upwards of 500,000 men. So these were rather small battles, but the prize they were fighting for, the retention of a British-led group of colonies in North America, and the United States was a large one. The American colonists tried to defeat the forces of Britain to force the British to the negotiating table. They had several complaints against the British for interfering with their trade, as well as interfering with some internal matters within the United States, particularly their relations with the natives. The British, who were occupied in Europe at the height of the Napoleonic Wars, sent minimal forces to North America and basically told their commander in North America to defend the line and not to risk any major action that would require reinforcements. So for nearly 3 years, both sides tried to undertake that strategy, and none of them succeeded in achieving any of their goals, other than you could say the British were successful in retaining the Canadas. The forces made sure that the diplomats could ensure the frontier, and after the War of 1812, both the British colonies and the United States went off to evolve to the modern countries that we are. You see the flashes from the muskets are getting more intense now, and the British are still trying to maneuver around the American right flank. But look at the discipline of these forces here. They keep going through their loading drill, presenting, and then firing. And they do this over and over and over again, and this is what's required to win a battle in this period. The soldiers receive significant training in how to do the weapon. They do it repeatedly so they can load it and fire it without thinking about it under any pressure whatsoever. So they can maneuver under fire. This is something that militia forces are not quite capable of doing. So that's why regular forces, both British regulars, Canadian regulars, and for the American side, their own regular troops were very important in this conflict. Volleys are getting quite heavy now as both sides are intensifying their fire. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to cheer the forces. Who here thinks the British are going to win this engagement? And how about some support for the American boys? So both commanders on each side are trying to assess the battle to see where it's going, where they can maneuver in order to put down effective fire. They're taking into account their losses, the rate of fire that they've sustained in this battle thus far. We've been fighting only for about 20 minutes. And they're also wondering if their lines are wavering, if there's a weak point that they may have to fill in. So it's still undecided as both sides are trying to maneuver and come into a position that they can defeat their opponent. Smoke that's built up with this firing. Soldiers would go into battle with 60 rounds. If he was wearing his full, he would have about 60 pounds on his back, plus the weight of his weapon. You can judge by the uniforms that they're not designed for comfort in this type of weather. It's a simple uniform with a coatee of various colors, a shoe that covers the head. It looks impressive on top of it. Makes it taller. And the white cross belts that go across the red coat indicating should be in the middle of the chest really don't matter because you can't see that through the smoke. But nonetheless, the uniforms have a psychological element that each side uses against the other. We have some Canadian militia moving up on the right. You can hear some yelling going out on the field. That's the NCOs and officers yelling instructions to their men. Anything that has to do with loading their weapons, presenting them, closing gaps in the line, directing fire towards a particular direction, maneuvering around the field. There's a lot of chat. Sometimes that's done with a pipe or a drum, or word of mouth is normally used. You can see the officers are quite exposed. They're always in front, watching the man, seeing what they're doing, seeing when they're ready to fire, and then directing the fire that goes through. If you look overhead, we also have some air support coming in. They must have gone through some time warp and wound up in this area. We'll correct that shortly. For the fallen on the field, those that could not move, that is movement comes off the field, they would just stay there until after the action was over, and then a general search would be done, either by both sides, having a ceasefire on one side who's taken over the field to sort through the wounded and the dead. The wounded would be brought back to an aid station, and there would be further triage, and then the one surgeon for every regiment would have a go at them, trying to save them either by chopping off limbs or merely just giving them some medication and seeing whether or not they survive. One element in this period, although you were watching a battle, disease was a greater killer of soldiers in this era. You could easily contract a disease that could kill you within a few hours, whereas the enemy may not have an opportunity to do that. We see the Canadian line moving up, the British regulars are moving up as well. We see the Americans have moved back on the field. The pressure is intensifying. That was a good ball. Closeness of the forces means that our artillery can't really support them in an action like this. The guns are silent. Normally what the guns would do would try to fire down the flanks, and by having the rounds ricochet across the ground, try to mow down their opponents, or as many of their opponents as they could. And look at that fire that's being sustained, ladies and gentlemen. That represents good training. We've had some artillery round go off, and both sides are trying to pour the best that they can into the other. At this point, the commanders on each side are trying to determine whether they should continue with the action, press harder against the enemy. It looks like we've got some more movement going up now on the Canadian right here. They have to make a determination. The lights fading very quickly. They want to continue the action. weapons used are smoothbore weapons. Some of the troops and some of the units would have had rifled weapons. And the advantage of rifling is it provides more stable flight for the round and a greater distance. The disadvantage is it takes a lot longer to load a rifled weapon, so that's why both sides generally tended to go with smoothbore weapons. You can load them very quickly, achieve anywhere between 3 and 4 rounds a minute, 5 favored. So the idea was to get the most limited range that you could, and accuracy at about 60. To give you an idea of the amount of rounds that could fire at the Battle of Chippewa on the 5th of July, 1814, a British brigade and an American brigade shot at each other intensely for a 40-minute period with about 2 hours of fighting beforehand. A total of 90,000 rounds were fired in that action alone. So you can see the Crown forces are moving considerably across the field. They're laying heavy pressure on the Americans, but the Americans are keeping up a solid fight. They're holding their ground.
Go back and loot a body. What? Go loot a body.
Notice there's no cavalry in the field. An action like this would make it impossible for horses to have an effect on battle. So sometimes the cavalrymen would dismount and go forward in smaller parties, perhaps a troop or a half troop, 15, 30 men, and try to make their own effect and influence upon the battle.
Spring up! We're all done back here. Right over here. Come here.
So we still don't know what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, but if you look at the Crown forces, they're continuing to advance on the field.
I'll take him forward.
You can cheer them up again just to get that little extra push. Let's have a huzzah for the Crown forces. Spirited Americans, let's have a round of applause for them as well. The artillery that fired here fired a variety of rounds. The main one was a spear made of iron that had a variety of weights, 3, 6, 9, 12 pounds or more. And the range could be normally between 800 to 1,000 yards or even further for some of the larger ordnance. Imagine a round weighing about 12 pounds coming at you. You would want to get out of the way of that because you know what it would do. Even a round rolling on the ground, supposedly looking not to be too harmful, could take off your foot if you try to stop it with your foot. So, ladies and gentlemen, it appears the Americans are quitting the field. They're leaving in order off the battlefield. They're withdrawing with elements that are withdrawing while some portion of their forces are keeping a foot on the ground, so to speak, in order to fire so there's not a pursuit against them. At some stages in battles like this, one side or the other could fix bayonets and basically conduct a bayonet charge. That didn't mean they ran wildly against their opponent. They advanced in order against their opponent and tried to chase them off the battlefield. You can see there's an advance going across the field, trying to last elements of the Americans coming off. I think we see the Glengarrys coming through the smoke and trying to get the last Americans as they get off the field. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we could say that the Crown forces have won this action. God save the King. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1812 drums of the Crown Forces are coming onto the field. They will be playing a lament to the fallen. I'd ask that you remove your caps, and for those of you that could please stand, just to honor the fallen from the War of 1812 from all sides. And with the music, our casualties here will slowly rise. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, let's applaud the forces that participated in tonight's talk. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.